Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Welcome to another episode of The Disruption Is Now. I'm Greg Matusky, your host. I'm also the CEO of Gregory FCA. We're going to be talking all things AI, and today is a historic day in the history of our podcast. This is our first two-time guest, right?
Oh, yeah.
First two-time guest.
Right.
Only our second live in-studio guest. And I'm here with Chad Gerber.
That's still my name.
And he has an awesome company that's developing a new technology for collaborating online between musicians who want to play together.
Yeah.
It's called Meloscene, and it's the coolest thing in the world. And it's probably the first guest that could talk about 90s music before the segment. So that was even more fun. But, you know, you're a platinum selling artist.
Somehow. I don't know.
And then you get into AI and you talk to me, an old dude like me, about all the cool things that are going on in AI, which is, well, I have to thank you. Most people don't even think I could stay up on all this information, but I do.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Well, let's start with Meloscene and where we are right now as far as development. And let's go through the technology, because it's pretty cool about what you figured out and some of the patents that you've secured for this company you're developing.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, well,
that's smoke and mirrors.
Hey, it's all about sincerity, and once you can fake that, right? So I know the process.
It is true though, because a lot of technology, I think one of the problems is that people approach it from just purely a physics-based solving standpoint versus the human element, which is magic. So if you watch David Copperfield make something disappear, it disappeared, but a physicist will be like, well, that's impossible. But the person that witnessed it is like, it happened. And that's more important, I think, than the actual 600 years of development.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast. I think it might have been Lex Friedman. He had a magician on.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because he said it's one of the, he said it's everybody in the audience suspends reality.
Yeah.
And they know that it's not really happening, but they all play along. Yeah. And that's a very special place to be, because you have to be an exquisite storyteller to get everyone to buy in. Yeah. So, and that's part of your story too, is that how you want to build your story and move it forward. Tell us about Chad, where you came from, what you saw, and how you made the jump from music to technology and AI.
Well, I was a poor boy in Louisiana, growing up on the bayou. No, I grew up in Montana.
You and John Fogerty.
Me and John Fogerty.
Oh, well, he's not from the Bayou. He's from Southern California, but he always played.
I don't think he wants anybody to know that.
Yeah, he always played Delta Rock, so we'll give him credit for that.
It worked for him.
Yeah, it did, big time.
It worked for. I grew up in Montana, and in high school, I started to get flown out or brought out as a musician to different places. So what would happen is I grew up in like a rural area where there's no real like art, music, anything like that. Fly out to somewhere like Miami, be around musicians, and do all this cool stuff.
Now, help me out here.
Yeah.
Because how were you discovered living in a small town in Montana, and then all of a sudden your talents are recognized and you're being flown around the country?
So I would sneak into concerts that came through. They weren't like big concerts, but small enough that I could like sneak in or get on a setup crew or whatever, and I would bother musicians until they would give me like their manager's numbers or whatever, and then I'd send them demos, and I'd be like, "How do I get out of here?" Literally, like, "How do I get out of here?"
At that point, what kind of music were you making?
Rock and roll.
From you said 70s was one of your favorite. Was that classic rock?
Well, at that time, since I was so desperate, I would jump in virtually any band, project, church, choir, you name it, because I was just like, I need to make music.
And so you were playing what? What's your instrument of choice?
Guitar. So my parents, when I was little, they said, you have to take an instrument. You're either going to do piano or guitar. And I hated piano because my sister played it and just practiced constantly. So I was like, I'll do guitar. And then one day it kind of clicked where I was like, I don't want to do dead people's music anymore. I want to make my own music. And then it kind of evolved into that.
So at what age were you kind of discovered traveling around the country out of where in Montana?
I think I did Billings, Montana.
Billings,
Montana. It's a refinery.
Yep. Yeah.
And
wasn't a Conoco refinery
there's a Conoco refinery.
Yeah,
Might be Cenex. I think they hand it off every 10 years to each other. I don't remember what. I don't remember. What was the question?
Well, when were you discovered? When did it all become a reality? That
Okay, so I would sneak backstage,
busting out of Billings.
I'd sneak backstage, and then finally, I met this keyboard player out of Florida, and I was like, I need to get out of here and all that. And he was like, why don't you send me some stuff, and I'll see if you suck or not. And I was.
And how old were you right then?
16 or 17.
16.
Yeah. And so I've been playing and like writing terrible songs and all that. So he was like, well, there's a summer camp in Orlando. And I was like, I'll fly you down.
Separate from space camp.
It might as well have been. It was weird. It was a really weird camp. I don't even know what the camp was. But flew me in. And then when I was there, he's like, we have some studio gear if you want to record like a demo. And so I was like, great. So I did ADAT, old tape machine demo. And then somehow it landed on somebody's desk in Dallas, Texas. And then they were like, well, we need a guitarist for this tour coming up. Some no-name, like small hip-hop group. So then I was doing hip-hop. And it just, every time I opened one up, I'd like hand off the stuff and just kind of kept evolving to the point where I got off of a tour or something happened. And I was like, I need to figure out what to do next. So I decided I need to move to Los Angeles, New York, Miami, or Dallas. And I don't know if you've ever heard of ASCAP, the performing rights group. I called their 1-800 number. And
they ruined Napster for me.
Right?
Go ahead.
I called them and basically I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. And they were like, we're going to put you in touch with some random dude in Los Angeles. So I talked to him and he goes, send me something and I'll let you know whether this is worth your time or not. So I sent him like some demos and then he hit me back and was like, I think if you move out, I think you can make it.
That's a wild story.
Yeah, I've never been to LA, so I was like, going to LA.
I want to fill in the other parts of the story, but to me, it's amazing because you're an artist and yet you see great value in AI, where most artists object to AI because of copyright issues, but also because...
And cheating. They see it as cheating, which I get it.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, where are we going? Do you think it's additive to the process? Do you think it's...
I think it's both. I have a mentality. My mentality is non-creative people are always going to try to steal from creative people. Unintelligent people are always going to try to steal from intelligent people. So we have this in infinite abundance. So I'm just going to make more than they can keep up with. So if they want to AI what I'm doing, I want to figure out a way to use the AI to make something so complicated that they can't even copy it for another 20 years.
Now, that's an interesting approach to it. And somewhat, our worlds are different, right?
Yeah.
I'm so much into the generative side of it.
Right, yeah.
Because that's what I do. But I always joke that I saw this as something that would be so disruptive that if I learned all I could about it, I might have a 2 or 3 year head start on others, right?
Yeah.
That's been reduced by about 6 months. But I'm still
5
confident,
minutes.
like you, that as a firm and as a professional, I can create so much by knowing how to get the intended result that I'll still have an advantage. Yeah. And I'll still be viable as a profession because most companies don't want to actually do, even if they have AI, they don't want to do what I do, right? So,
no, of course not, no.
But to get there, right, to secure that position takes an incredible amount of time of learning and development and just staying abreast of an industry that changes every single day. I mean, Claude announced a mobile app today. What does that mean? I mean, half of our people use Claude, half use ChatGPT. So it's always something and always different. So fill in the backstory now. Yeah. So you're a musician, and you've got a successful career going. And when does it occur to you that technology might be another path?
Something.
Yeah.
Well, this is weird. It's so dorky. When I was a kid, before I discovered music, I actually discovered inventors, and I was obsessed with inventors inventing junk. So I would like rip things apart in my parents' house and try to build things that do things and all that. I thought that was super cool. And then somebody told me one day that there's nothing left to be invented. So then I was like, okay, well then I'll focus on music. So I had this thing of like technology and inventions and all that. And what happened is as I was living this weird remote life, going into urban environments, touring and all that, I was always alone and away from somebody that I didn't want to be. So when you're on tour, you're away from family, but you're with your music and your fans and all that. when you're at home, you're away from them. So you're never comfortable. So I would sit for, there's a lot of time to kill on tour. And I would just think about the technology, if it existed and what I could do with it. And luckily when I was a kid, my grandma, she would get me these popular mechanics books and stuff like that. And I'd read over them about what's coming. And what I saw is that it started to actually happen. So when people are like, we're going to build a train that does this, it would show up in 10 years and all that. So I started to think, almost just to kind of pass the time, I was like, if I could combine this element, and like I said earlier, I was into ham radios and CB radios and I hacked scanners and some of that. And it's like, if I could do stuff with this, what could I build? And then one day the technology caught up to my just daydreaming.
And in some ways, that's a unique perspective. Some ways, it's not. Invention has always been a part, particularly in modern music. Les Paul, right? He invented...
Huge influence,
right?
Yeah.
And he invented a lot of what you hear on the electric guitar.
Exactly.
Boston invented all kinds of... not Brad Delp, but the other one. Maybe it was Brad Delp.
Yeah, like all those guys, though, that was the whole... anybody can play the guitar. But who can play the guitar and modify the guitar?
Right. Right.
And now you sound different. Like, how do you make an instrument that everybody has it? How do you make it sound like you?
Right.
You can play it style-wise and all that. Or you can take a step further and redesign the pickups. And now you sound like Les Paul.
Right.
And I like that idea of how we're not stuck. We can always manipulate and adapt to sound like our voice, whether it be a creative voice or just anything. We have that ability as humans to make things and modify them.
So here you have this neural network that's been primed for music, which is unique. And at the same time, you have perhaps this neural network, which is uniquely suited to technology, invention, innovation. And then the pandemic comes. Was that the
That was fun. I enjoyed the pandemic. That was a great...
At least there's one of us.
Great experience. No, I lost so many cool tours and amazing things from that. But because it happened, I was like, well, what am I sitting on? You know what I mean? Like, music was totally dead in the water. And I also knew that every musician on earth was going to make 17 albums over that pandemic. And I was like, I'm not going to get lost in that. So it was just a matter of, well, what other stuff have I kind of been wanting to kick around? And then that was when I was like, well, this whole VR thing. And I was talking with Gibson about some projects as a Gibson artist at the time. And I was like, what do you guys think about this? And they were like, we want to know more about that. So that was kind of all it was just even a little bit of interest.
So give me the upshot. What was the aha moment? When did you start putting together this virtual studio? Let's go into that. I really want to know the details of what you saw, what you developed, and really what's some of the challenges that you've overcome.
I think the key piece, every time when I think about it, it's when Palmer Luckey in Manhattan Beach put an iPhone on his face and made the first Oculus headset. It was a piece of garbage. And I think he was selling it on one of those like Kickstarter sites. And when the phone went to here, that was when I was like, again, I just was like, that's not going to happen until 2055 or whatever. But then I was like, well, hold on. Like now it's doing something. And that kind of just got me thinking about it. And then again, now when I'm on a plane, I'm thinking, what if I was on a plane right now in a room, making music with somebody who's on the ground? Like it wasn't possible until he did that. And I think that was in like 2011, 8, something like that. So it was all these just different people moving on different things, had to do with like 5G technology, and it had to get better. And then music itself, that was another one because the quality was so terrible. And then all of a sudden the processors and sound cards got to a level like, it was just kind of like watching a garden grow, Like I need the pumpkins and these to come in. When that's all in, I can actually make something.
And so part of this is that you invented technologies, you patent technologies. Tell me about the studio experience, the immersive experience that you've built. How does it work?
Oh my gosh. I have to tone myself down because I geek out about it. But basically, the whole key factor any musician or artist knows is that there's a magic that happens when you're collaborating that you cannot describe. And you do not know where it comes from. People call it magic, God, whatever you want to call it, it happens in a studio. And
what's that click like? Because somebody like me, I don't get to experience that.
Have you ever been writing and you're like talking about something and all of a sudden you're not even thinking about what you're writing, you're reading it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that happens with people when there's multiple people involved, which makes it even creepier. Because like you can be working on a song and be like, oh, this is really cool. But like, you'll be in the studio and all of a sudden a guy who can barely play the piano will start playing a lick. And you're just like, where is this coming from?
And you borrow from that.
Yeah. Well, you have to have that. It's the nonverbal communication that is happening. So like we live in a society where we've whittled all our communication down to text when 60 to 80% of our communication is nonverbal. And in the studio, majority of our communication is nonverbal. So we know what it's like to be in a room, not say anything. I mean, I work with artists who don't even speak English, and we can make phenomenal stuff. And it's finding that magic point. And I was like, I bet you if we can trick the brain into thinking we're in person, we might be able to recreate it in VR.
So tell me how you trick the brain. Tell me the aspects, the assets,
well, so
what it's like.
That was it, where we basically started. So I put together the prototype, which originally was a hardware piece. And I was like, I'm going to be able to plug my gear in, put the headset on, and then we'll go into a virtual studio.
And the headset is a
Oculus, Apple Vision Pro, whatever.
Right. And that's not what you're selling. What you're selling is the ability
the whole machine that's going to put you in there. We're we say we're the Google Docs of creativity for the metaverse and AI.
So somebody in Buenos Aires, am I saying that right? Somebody in Argentina.
I like the way you're saying it, whether it's right or not.
Brazil, where are we? Okay, let's say Montreal. How's that?
Janeiro,
Manhattan, Montreal,
Denver,
or Montana.
A lot of stuff comes out of Denver these days.
Denver, so can be together virtually.
Yeah.
In a way that recreates that in-person experience in a studio.
Yes. And it was a roll of the dice. So I got the whole thing going, figured it out, teams, blah, 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 all that. And then I had my producer in Amsterdam, who is an incredible producer, Grammy-nominated dude, works with everybody. And we're basically like, okay, here we go. So we go in, and it was super early stages. We look like floating Wii character eggs. And we're kind of laughing. And we're like, oh, this is ridiculous, whatever. But then we started making music, and we found that the brain was absolutely desperate to convince us that we were actually there. And within minutes, your brain, it's like watching a movie, the suspension of disbelief. Your brain wants to go there, and it did. And then before we knew it, we did not even see avatars. Even though we look ridiculous, we made music, and it was good. And we were hitting that magic thing.
But you still had challenges to overcome.
Still, so many challenges.
And part of that is just latency. And you were explaining to me earlier the brilliance in what you've done. You borrowed from gaming and making it, I guess, instantaneous, that the collaboration is in real time. That's an overused term because, we're so used to being real time on our phone when there's a gap of 3 seconds. But so tell me.
That's the magic part, right? So even like speaking right now, what is the milliseconds in this room? Like 5 milliseconds to get across the room, but our brain compensates visually to sync up our words. So even though your eardrums are shaking, you're factoring in the latency in real time in your mind. So the system I was like, well, if we could just remove the reference point, that would help to kind of chop off the first chunk of latency.
And explain the reference point.
So like the easiest one to do is if we're on a cell phone in the room with somebody and it starts echoing, it's because you're sending your signal from your phone to the tower, 183,000 miles per second, to another tower to pop it. And now it's like you can hear that delay. So you're not really in time at all. It's a delay.
So that's a dramatic example.
Yeah.
But when you're collaborating musically, just small little offsets.
It's extremely important, right? And that's where the patent pending like AI system will come in for like full blown live. Right now we're focusing on the collaboration part. So we're whittling down the reference point, which is already just about nothing, which it's far greater than I had hoped. And what it does is it allows for you to just not notice anything.
And explain that, because beforehand you explained that to us. It was fascinating to me because, for instance, a voice could be local to one of the performers.
Are you talking about the AI the AI system?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to speak about that AI system? A little bit. Okay.
Just a little bit.
Okay. So basically,
that's his wife. He's going
so
to.
Basically,
she's the real powers that be here.
She's like, you will die.
It's the same in my relationship, and I'm going on. This will be my 38th year here next week, so that's a good thing.
So, okay. So basically, the AI system, I'll just say that it does not use audio compression and signal transfers to make it happen. It bypasses it like you would in a video game. So if you're a soldier in Call of Duty and you squeeze the trigger on your end, it's not sending the character visual information and all that through the internet across the planet. It's just doing something on the other end to bypass all of the data.
And that's the magic.
That's the magic.
And that's what gives you that feeling that you're collaborating with somebody right next to you. Because
I'd say that and the visual cues, because the other weird thing that's happening in VR, mixed reality, is that the brain's so desperate that if you, and this is super creepy to me, and I'm still kind of like figuring it out, but if you put your hand up to somebody in the room in these spaces, your hand will feel warmth.
that is amazing.
It's super creepy.
But our brain does want to fill in all kinds of missing information. I was watching something online where they would flash a saying in front of you.
Yeah.
And they played a recording. It was the same recording. I forget what it was. It was like 3 words.
Right.
It's kind of mumbled. You couldn't really hear it. But each phrase was dramatically different than the next. And the moment you saw that phrase, that's what you heard. And then they changed it. And then you heard the next one. And then they changed it again. And because our brain really does want to fill in that missing information.
Yes.
And that's what AI does at its very basic level. It fills in that next token, what most likely to appear. That's why it hallucinates, because sometimes, sometimes you don't want the next token. You want something unique, something different. And it's not built to do that necessarily.
Right.
But there can be wondrous and wonderful things that come out of that very serendipity opportunity to see it in a wholly different way. I was listening to an interview with Mark Andreessen, the great venture capitalist, and he was talking about a law firm. And they were going in to pitch this law firm on building an LLM for them, specifically for the law firm. And he was all geared up to talk about safety and security and how they could lock down hallucinations, right? And they asked him what would be the risk of doing that. What would be the downside? And he said, if you lock it all down so it doesn't hallucinate, you're going to lose the creativity. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, tell me about that. And the law firm wanted to know more. And he said, well, we know that you want to be accurate. Like, it will never miscite a case. It will never make up a case, which we all know that one of the big knocks against AI is some stupid attorney months ago handed in a brief that was all fake right off of AI because he was too lazy to check his own cases. And Mark Andreessen said, the law firm said, oh no, we want the wonderful, wondrous, weird things. We want to see arguments that we would never see before. Right. We can have junior associates determine whether that citation is right or not. What we can't have junior associates do is come up with entirely new lines of reasoning, which could be thrown at us in a case, or which we could put out in a case in a legal reasoning that would be different from what was expected.
Right.
And that's what's so amazing about AI, because you often see the same things repeated time and time again. But then you get those couple little things of magic, those little doses of magic that really can make you think and opens up your mind and creates a different kind of intelligence and creativity that you couldn't do on your own.
Right.
So
I think AI is going to open up, like, one of the crazy things about being a human being is that we're constantly dealing with, we're terrible at remembering anything. Like, the average person's entire perspective of existence is like 80 years. It's like, what can I get done in 80 years? Like, we think of everything in these like limited factors, and then we forget things. Like, our brain's always trying to offload information. And now we're getting to the space where we have like AI to hang on to it for us, which is extremely useful. Like, imagine if, you could recall a textbook page from, university when you need to solve a problem right now today. And like, it's kind of getting us into this space where it's like our little neurological caretaker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think as they become more assistants and their memory improves, that's much going to be the case. I know I use other people to offload, as you said, information into their brain. Right. Or I'll actually say, remember this and tell me this later. Exactly. My wife might be in charge of, when our cars need to be registered again. Right. I offload that onto her, and she offloads onto me, for instance, when I have to call the landscaper to make sure that they start the lawn service again. Right. So people for eons have used other people to carry information for them. I think as we see these assistants emerge and we think of them as assistants and their memories become better, we'll be able to lodge in them memories that we can pull out and play with in a safe way to help us finish a task, right?
I mean, and there was a video just came out this last week where I forget who it was, but that's what they did. They fed all of this individual's books, interviews, everything into AI, and it essentially has all of his knowledge on that specific topic, to where you can converse with it to know what that individual has to say about it. And this is now. So, I mean, this is the early phases.
But take me to the downside. Here, you're an artist, right? AI.
Brain atrophy.
AI threatens artists, right? You can create music with it. Sora, you can create maybe 2 minutes worth of visuals with it. Doesn't that threaten traditional art? And would even be acceptable in the future to accept AI art? Will there be a place for AI art, but will it be below the human domain, or will it be just as important as the human domain?
So, first off, I think that this is sort of one of the reasons that artists are struggling with this. And I hate the fact that AI exists. The AI art exists because it's been stealing from me and other artists. Like, these data pools are not just some magical thing it came up with. It's been scrubbing our work. I think that's the main reason why most artists are mad, because it's like these bajillion-dollar companies.
And where do you fall on that?
I'm of the mentality the glass is not half full or empty. It depends on if you just drank from it or poured it. I don't know if that makes any sense. But
yeah, it does.
I'm like, in my opinion, whether it was just drank from or not, I'm done with the glass anyways, because you're all touching it. So I'm going to go find a different thing. So the way I see it is, AI is the Pandora's box is open. Everybody can make art now. Everybody is special. Thus, no one is special. How do we then elevate it as an artist? A true artist, their job is to take things to the next level to impact and touch humanity. We're not talking like a little pop song necessarily, but I see it as we're heading into the age of the builders again. I think we're going into the age of the Da Vinci's and the people that make things that you need supplemental AI and stuff like that to do. If people are mad that they can't make an image of a gecko without it being duplicated by AI, first off, that's great, but maybe you're not pushing what you can do hard enough, or maybe and that's fine, maybe it's too exhausting. But the way I see it is that we've been replaced in that aspect, and now it is time, our job as artists, to change what the definition of that, what an artist even is.
So how do you come to that conclusion? I'll give you an analogy. In my business, I'm often fighting against my contemporaries who own PR firms, who tell me, one of the things I hear is, why do you share all this information?
Yeah.
Right? You're just telling the client how to do it. In my opinion is, look, if the client can do it, they should do it, right? I mean, that's one thing. But also, I always say, and this really upsets people, I say it's the end of the era of experts. Yeah. Expertise will not exist, because there's going to be some kid in Kenya, perhaps, who can figure out an issue that I'm having better than I can.
And that's a good thing. If we really step back, that's a good thing. That's how we solve diseases. That's how we innovate things. That's how we stop trying to figure out how to get back to the moon, whatever that's taken so long. You know what I mean? Like, we have to, I feel like we've been lazy.
Right.
And again, like, I love all art, crayon art, all the way to Da Vinci and all these other things. But it is here. You can be mad about the fact that a lot of tech companies, they really technically did steal it from us. But if we're really are artists, we're infinite in our creativity. And let's demonstrate that.
Well, that's a high degree of confidence, right?
It's probably just a lot of delusion. But I think that's part of being an artist, is a lot of some delusion in there as well.
I think you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be delusional, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You got to believe. You got to you got to believe that a 30-story skyscraper stands right there when there's really a gasoline station,
right?
And you got to sell that dream.
Yeah.
And you may not know all the critical path that's going to get there.
Exactly.
But you've got to be delusional to think that you can take that land and demolish the gasoline station and build a luxury high-rise condominium complex.
Exactly.
And it's the same, I think. I don't think creative people think enough like that. I think they
used to. That's the thing. I think that they used to, and we got comfortable.
Tell me more about that.
Well, like, you look throughout like history, the stuff that people were doing. Like, one of my favorites is the Wright brothers and the weird symbiotic relationship with the combustion engine, where somebody made a big stupid engine and put goo from the ground in it. And it was like, okay, it does stuff. It took jobs, it made jobs, et cetera. These guys watched the engine shrink And then they just, for whatever reason, decided, we should slap it onto a piece of wood and see if it flies. Scientists predicted that flight would not happen for another, I think it was 1 million years. They literally predicted it 6 months before the first flight. Scientists said, men will never fly for another 1 million years. They just tried it. But I feel like if that engine didn't happen, if the horse wasn't replaced, all these things didn't take place, they wouldn't have even thought about it. But instead they were just like, I think humans get bored. And we look at stuff and like, well, that already did it. So what else can we do?
Yeah.
And then you try stuff and then you start innovating and making new things. And we haven't really, the thing is it's cyclical. Like we've been in this sort of a lull area for a while because we made a bunch of cool stuff and we've been riding on it. And now it's been disrupted again. This is the equivalent of the Industrial Revolution happening, which means, historically speaking, throughout all of history, we're now about to see a bunch of weird stuff happen, but it's only going to happen with the people that aren't afraid of it or mad at it. They're just going to step back and be like, well, what could we try?
Right. And so you see the era of the super creator being the individual. Right now, there's very little you can discover right now that if you don't have a massive, well, I should have said until 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you didn't have the bureaucracy, you didn't have the enterprise, you didn't have the people, you didn't raise a lot of money. But now you see the return of these super creators, the Edison who can go into his lab and come up with the light bulb. Yeah,
well, and because again, with that, when Edison and all them were doing that, the industry itself was still kind of being like established. What are the rules? We need paperwork on that. You can't do that. Once it all gets like set up, then you're locked in. And then now it needs to be a massive bomb to blow the door open. Well, AI showed up and just blew the door open. So now it's a matter, they're all going to scramble to gather their rights. Who can use my ML? Who can do this? Who can that? And it'll happen again, but it's going to take, well, I don't even know at this point, but it'll take time before once again it's locked into that system.
And we're in an era too of huge collaboration and sharing.
Right.
When people make a discovery in AI, they promote it and they share with other people. I said before this to your wife, everything I've learned about AI, I've learned on X.
Yeah.
Because I've just followed thought leaders.
Right.
And I try to emulate what they say. If they say that, you have to, this morning I was watching one of my heroes who I've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
Connor Grenran. He's the dean of students at the New York Stern School of Business. And he said the magic word when he writes a prompt, and again, I'm going from the generative side, is readability. He always puts the word readability after he prompts it to do something, and it cleans up the copy to make it more understandable by the reader, right? I thought that's kind of interesting. And so, I had a quick news release to write before this, and sure enough, I put in readability, and I think it worked. I think it was pretty readable when it came out. So there's this great era of collaboration and sharing, unlike anything I've ever seen in my time in technology, which spans all the way from the GUI interface to AI, right? And I share with you so many of your beliefs. I believe that, look, if we don't innovate and we don't accept this and we don't understand its capabilities, its limitations, and its risk, that's riskier.
Yeah, you're dead.
Right.
You're straight up dead.
Right. We will never know what the real potential or evils are if we clamp down right now.
That honestly, that is one of the reasons for Meloscene. There's a whole bunch of reasons, obviously, but one of them is I got tired of watching all these other groups take a hold of cool stuff and manhandle it to what they want, and people complaining about it. Like Facebook is a good example. Love it or hate it. I don't know Zuckerberg. I don't know his intent, but it was a connecting tool that turned into a political tool that turned into this, and everybody stomps their feet. Well, who actually tried to make something better or help?
Right.
And you get to that point where like, maybe just, what is it? Shut up or put up, put out something.
Put up.
Is that appropriate?
Put up.
It's something like, but basically it's like, I'm
not
tired
put
of
out.
Not put out. No,
put
wrong
up.
podcast. Let's edit that. So basically that was it. It was like, I'm tired of watching. We have to get involved. Even if you don't know what you're doing, yes, you're an artist and maybe you're mad about this. And if you don't get your hands dirty, these other people who aren't even barely artists or innovators, they're going to do it.
That's an important point. It'll be less creative people that move it forward if the true creatives don't accept it and move it forward.
Exactly.
That's a great point, which I've never heard explained like that. You're going to leave it open.
I don't know what I said. I blacked out.
You're going to leave it open to the mediocres, right? to those who are just good enough. And that's some of the things I see with artists in the visual arts, right? They see the really bad AI art and they deny it. They go, I will never do that. I will never buy that. That's just, there's no humanity in it. But they don't, they don't want to advance it, right? They're not going to join this coalition of the willing to enter their brilliance into the equation. That would maximize this, optimize it, something truly different and exciting. All right, I want to finish the podcast with something, right?
Okay, a song?
No, well, just about. I'm gonna buy some vinyl tonight.
Ooh,
what should I buy? The one album I should buy from the '70s.
Oh my gosh!
On the '70s
podcast.
Yeah,
just run the clock.
Right,
run the clock.
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh!
From the '70s.
I don't know what you probably have a good vinyl collection.
Not a great one. I got 250 albums.
Well, I mean, if I were to buy a vinyl right in this very moment, I'd probably go just because I'm feeling it right now. Some Pink Floyd.
Okay, all right. The Wall.
Yeah.
All right. 80s.
80s. I would go with. I like some Prince.
Oh yeah.
I like some Prince right now.
Yeah. 90s.
Everclear.
Oh yeah.
Wait, is that the right one? I'll buy you a new car.
I'll buy you a new car.
Perfect shiny. That's Everclear, right? There's
I will buy you a garden.
Yeah. There's Everlast and Everclear. Everlast is I've seen here.
Right.
Not that one.
Right.
I mean, that one's good too.
The guys from Santa Monica. I think they're originally from Santa Monica.
Yeah, man, they're always playing out at the Viper Room.
My son and I loved them.
Missed it.
We loved it. And they had these nice little pop tunes about how he was abused by his father. It was really bizarre.
Dude was cool.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
But cool. Yeah, they're always playing the Viper Room, but I was never around.
I should get one of their albums because my son and I really enjoyed that in the 90s. We'd play them.
Everclear.
I
think Everlast had that one song.
Yeah, but Everclear was much more upbeat, almost a surf.
Really good guitar tone.
Yeah.
They had it locked in.
Yeah, but if you listen to the lyrics, you realized how his father had kicked the shit out of him for 20
Dude, I love
years.
their stuff. Is so cool though.
Yeah.
That's like a life song.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
I'll buy you a new car. Perfect.
2000.
Oh, Britney Spears all day long.
Oh wow,
I'm totally joking. Nothing against Britney Spears. Hold on, who is in 2000? You know what? Chevelle.
Chevelle. I'm not familiar with Chevelle. That's
That's
have to check that
that's
out.
That's a deep cut. I think they had one hit, Seeing Red.
Yeah.
Or anything Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters is always
it's a good one.
A good choice.
That's a good one. What did I get from 2000 recently? Kings the first. I think it was Kings of Leon. I think that was 2000.
I cannot believe that they've been around since 2000. That's insane.
A lot of bands have been around since 2000. Cagey Elephants have been around.
Are they really? What?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah, the aughts. There was some good rock and roll during the aughts. No one, again, we don't know this when we're living through it, but
it got weird because that's because I remember going through this jump between analog to digital.
Oh, the White Stripes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, that was a huge thing. I went to his label once on tour and just drooled over the entire studio, everything. All of it was made with trumpets and rusted bolts.
And then how about 2010s?
I would wait, 20. What are we in right now?
Well, we're in the 2020s. Yeah, 2024.
What happened in 2010? I would get the Suicide Denial. It's an indie rock band out of Los Angeles that's no longer around. I'm on Warped Tour.
All right. Well, Chad.
I don't think there was no vinyl, so
it's been a great episode. I'm glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me, man.
First rebooked guest.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really exciting to hear what you're doing.
Can I have my name on the back?
Yeah, we'll put it up there. We'll put it up there. But
stop talking. That's what you're thinking in your mind.
But I got to thank you because
man.
I always want to hear from artists about AI because I run into them every once in a while and I don't have really good ways to explain this. And I think
it's also touchy. They're very volatile.
Yeah.
It's scary.
But I think what you said about if great artists don't come forward, we're going to leave it for mediocre artists to define this category. Yeah. And that would be a travesty. I think that's something we can all leave with and really go out there and build that coalition of the
I'm excited. I think we're in a good spot. I do need people to kind of step up and not be scared of it or mad at it.
Yeah.
Beat it.
Well, with that, we'll sign off. And I thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me on.
Once again, reinvigorating my love for what's to come.
Let's go jam.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.